Upon discovering that my betrothed harbored a secret infatuation for an omega, I took the initiative to propose a mutual understanding. From now on, let us refrain from interfering in each other's affairs and simply pursue our own paths. Gui Lin gazed deeply into my eyes and, with a few words forced through clenched teeth, replied, "You may certainly attempt that. An attempt it would be." I interpreted his response as acquiescence, and thus I immersed myself nightly in the vibrant nightlife of bars and clubs after our marriage. To my astonishment, after a single night of absence, Gui Lin publicly retrieved me and brought me home. The scent of pine, laden with the weight of reprimand, surged forth, compelling me to prematurely enter my heat phase. With the last vestiges of my rationality, I confronted the alpha, who was languidly adjusting his tie. Did we not agree to pursue our own pleasures? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear as he chuckled softly. "My dear, we are indeed pursuing our own pleasures. It is merely that you are entertaining a male model, while I am indulging in you." 01. Within the circles of society, it is well known that Gu Yilin harbors a long-standing infatuation with an omega, consumed by thoughts of love that remains unattainable. When the announcement of the marriage between the Gu family and the Xia family emerged, everyone assumed that the ever-rebellious heir of the Gu family would undoubtedly create a tempest in defiance of the engagement. To their astonishment, however, the Gu family remained tranquil throughout. In fact, merely a week later they issued wedding invitations. The onlookers sighed, realizing that even someone as exalted as Gu Yilin could not escape the fate of a dynastic marriage. As one of the parties involved in this union, I could not help but feel a tinge of disappointment. Fortunately, I quickly came to terms with it. With my small sketchpad in tow, life could be enjoyed anywhere. As for my betrothed having affections for another, that was indeed fortuitous. It would spare me the effort of cultivating any emotional ties. Maintaining the purest of business relations would allow us both to navigate this arrangement with ease. Hence, during our inaugural meeting, I candidly proposed, since this is a commercial marriage, there is no need for us to be bound by this contract. Although divorce may pose challenges, as long as we reach a consensus, we can live our lives according to our own desires in private. I believed my words were faultless. Yet, as soon as I finished speaking, Gu Yilin's previously gentle demeanor transformed into a shadowy countenance. Divorce? He seemed unable to grasp the crux of the matter. I then endeavored to express my thoughts more plainly. From now on, we shall not interfere with one another. We can each live as we please. At this, Gu Yilin's expression darkened entirely. 02. The young master of the Gu family possesses quite a temper, and when angered, it lingers long. I remained oblivious to what had perturbed him. Throughout the wedding festivities, he scarcely exchanged a word with me. Upon returning home, he retreated in silence to his study. After my shower, I languidly sprawled on the bed, scrolling through my phone. The fatigue of several days overwhelmed me, and my eyelids began to droop. Within moments, I succumbed to slumber. The unfamiliar expanse of the bed made my rest uneasy. In a hazy state, I sensed a dip in the mattress beside me. Then, a pair of large hands gently lifted my head, placing a thick, soft towel beneath it, and meticulously dried my damp hair. The tender ministrations brought me immense comfort. Surrounded by a subtle aroma of pine, I unknowingly sank into a deep sleep. When I awoke the next day, the sun was already high in the sky. I gazed at the pronounced creases on the other side of the bed, lost in contemplation. Had I tossed and turned throughout the night? Or had Gu Yilin indeed shared the bed with me? I had no opportunity to inquire, for as I descended the stairs, Uncle Zhang informed me that there was an urgent meeting at the company, and Gu Yilin had departed early in the morning. Since the old master of the Gu family had been hospitalized, Gu Yilin had gradually taken over most of the family's enterprises, effectively becoming the de facto leader of the Gu clan. I was taken aback to learn he was so busy that he needed to work even on our first day of marriage. I had harbored lingering concerns about how to interact with Gu Yilin alone after the wedding, but given the current circumstances, it seemed there would be little opportunity for solitude. He would pursue his affairs while I would recline in leisure. Truly, this was an ideal union. My heart erupted with joy, akin to fireworks. Yet, in front of others, it would not do to appear too exuberant. I hastily donned an expression of melancholic disillusionment and sighed softly. Observing this, Uncle Zhang hurried to console me. The young master instructed me beforehand that you enjoy traditional Chinese breakfast. The kitchen has prepared crab roe soup dumplings, pine nut xiao mai, red rice rolls, shrimp dumplings, and lotus leaf glutinous rice chicken. Instantly, my spirits lifted. I'll have one of each, please. 03. My delightful moments of solitude did not last long. After savoring the last bite of Xiao Mai, I rubbed my pleasantly rounded belly. Just as I was about to let out a satisfied belch, Uncle Zhang's phone on the dining table began to ring. I glanced at the caller ID and saw it was Gu Yilin. Uncle Zhang was currently busy in the cellar inventorying the wine stock and would not return for a while. As I watched the call nearing its automatic end, I had no choice but to answer. Gu Yilin's deep voice resonated through the line. Zhangshu, has Xiaoshu woken up? It took me a couple of seconds to register that Xiaoshu referred to me. The unintended intimacy caught me off guard, rendering me somewhat tongue-tied. That is, I am Xiaoshu. Silence enveloped both ends of the call. Uncertain whether the heat on my cheeks was from the phone or my own embarrassment, my ears burned. Just as I was about to fidget nervously, Gu Yilin finally spoke again. Where is Zhangshu?
Zangsha, ist busy.
Is there something you need? I forgot to bring a document with me and would like Zhangshu to arrange for a driver to deliver it. Is it urgent? Would you like me to bring it to you? No rush. You seem quite tired these past few days. It's best to rest at home today. It's fine, really. I've had enough rest and was just about to head out, I began, but then realized that perhaps Gu Yilin, like me, was not particularly eager to see one another. Perhaps I should just find Zhangshu instead. The document is in the white envelope on the desk in the study. It's needed for the next meeting. I'll inform the front desk so you can come straight up when you arrive. I faltered, but didn't you just say it wasn't urgent? 04. I hurriedly delivered the document to the Gu Group building. The receptionist escorted me to the elevator. However, as soon as the doors closed, an unsettling sensation washed over me. Is this elevator typically reserved for Gu Yilin? I tugged at my collar, feeling a dryness in my throat. Yes, this is President Gu's private elevator. No wonder the scent of pine was so pervasive. The receptionist, being a beta, was less affected by pheromones. Yet, despite wearing suppressants, I could not help but feel a flutter of anxiety and warmth in such a heavily saturated alpha pheromone environment. Especially since the aroma was so appealing to me, each passing second felt interminable, and a thin sheen of sweat formed on my back. I struggled to steady my breathing, striving to maintain my composure. Ding! The elevator finally reached the top floor, and I dashed out at once. To my surprise, I collided directly with Gu Yilin, who was waiting at the elevator entrance. He instinctively steadied me, only to realize almost immediately that something was amiss with my condition. What's wrong? Gu Yilin lowered his gaze, studying me intently as he asked softly. My face flushed crimson, and I was at a loss for words. Surely, I could not confess that his pheromones had rendered me weak at the knees. Observing my flushed cheeks and rapid breaths, he assumed I was suffering from heatstroke and promptly swept me into his arms, striding into the office. While instructing his assistant to fetch medicine, he ensured I had water, lay down and applied an ice pack. I felt guilty as I watched him flit about with concern. Just as he was about to call for a private doctor, I quickly interjected, I feel much better now. Resting here should suffice. Please attend to your own matters. Gu Yilin appeared somewhat unconvinced. He sat beside me, scrutinizing my complexion closely. Once he confirmed that my symptoms had improved, he finally exhaled a sigh of relief. I hope that earlier incident did not cause you any discomfort. I understood he was referring to the Princess Carrie and hastily waved my hands. Rest assured, I comprehend your intentions. Intentions? I am not entirely naive in matters of commerce. You know, following our union, both Gu and Xia stocks have soared. We must certainly display affection to bolster the share prices. Gu Yilin was momentarily taken aback by my words, then lowered his head with a sardonic scoff. Bolster the share prices, is it? He rose to his feet, and as he regarded me, the warmth in his gaze had diminished significantly. Then I must trouble young Master Xia to showcase our affection more frequently henceforth. From that day forward, Gu Yilin would invariably find an excuse to summon me, delivering lunch, USB drives, and warmth. After each delivery, he would not permit my departure, insisting I wait for him to finish work. Whenever I sought to slip away, his countenance would darken, and the words marital discord would be glaringly evident on his face. He truly was the most temperamental individual I had ever encountered. Keeping in mind the adage that harmony breeds prosperity, I reported to Gu Yilin's office daily, akin to clocking in for work. Fortunately, the perks of the CEO's office were quite commendable. The lounge's bed was exceedingly comfortable, and the afternoon tea pastries were delectable. To alleviate my boredom, Gu Yilin even set up a small easel for me in the lounge. meticulously recreating our home gaming room in miniature. With a harmonious blend of work and leisure, I found myself thoroughly fulfilled during my time there. As time passed, the employees of Gu Corporation began to regard me with increasing respect. Not only because Gu Yilin frequently treated the entire building to afternoon tea in my name, but also because the CEO never worked overtime in my presence. At the stroke of quitting time, Gu Yilin would take my hand and exit in a conspicuous manner amidst the gaze of the entire company. After a month of publicly displaying our affection, I observed the stock prices soaring, experiencing a curious blend of pain and joy. This was not quite the union I had envisioned. Moreover, while showcasing our affection in public was one matter, why was it incessantly carried over into our home life? Ever since learning of my post-dinner stroll habit, Gu Yilin would change into suitable shoes and wait by the entrance as soon as we finished dinner. His gaze toward me resembled that of a large dog eagerly anticipating its owner's invitation for an outing. Naturally, I dared not articulate this sentiment. His rationale was, partners should cultivate similar habits, as this will appear more intimate and affectionate to outsiders. I initially thought he would lose interest after a few attempts. Yet he proved more enthusiastic than I, discovering new routes every few days. Together, we chased the slowly sinking sun at the end of the highway, traversed the dappled shadows cast by street lamps, and reveled in the gentle breeze that swept away our distractions. As we walked, pausing intermittently, each time I happened to glance back, I would invariably find Gu Yilin's gaze fixed upon me, brimming with emotions I could not decipher. Yet, in that fleeting moment of eye contact, a subtle tenderness would unfurl. My heart inexplicably raced a few extra beats. The distance of our evening walks gradually extended, longer and longer. One day, as per usual, I brought lunch to Gu Yilin's office and encountered a young man I had never seen before. He was tall and elegant, with a complexion as pale as snow and eyes as dark as ink. Dressed in a well-tailored gray suit, he possessed a remarkably slender figure. He stood before the desk, seemingly reporting something to Gu Yilin. The way Gu Yilin regarded him was different from how he treated ordinary employees. There was an added layer of patience and warmth. I hesitated for a moment, contemplating whether to enter, but Gu Yilin spotted me first, rising swiftly to open the door. "What brings you here so early?" "There was no traffic today, so I arrived a bit sooner." He glanced at the double lunchbox I carried, hesitating momentarily before saying, "I have a lunch meeting with a partner that was arranged at the last minute." "Apologies, I was just about to call you." "Gu, sir." A cool voice interrupted from behind him. "The other party will arrive in 20 minutes. We should be on our way." Upon hearing this, I waved my hand at Gu Yilin, signaling him to disregard me and attend to his business. With an apologetic expression, Gu Yilin said, "I will definitely come home for dinner tonight." I nodded obediently, watching them depart. Throughout this exchange, the young man's gaze never once met mine, as if I were invisible. The deliberate disregard conveyed an unmistakable hostility. I found this puzzling and, suspecting my sensitivity, inquired with others while waiting for my driver. Another assistant informed me that the young man's name was Lin Yu, a child whom Gu Corporation had supported since childhood. After graduation, he had been working as Gu Yilin's assistant. Typically, a corporation like Gu's would not employ an Omega, but it was Gu Yilin who interceded on his behalf to secure him a position. Since joining, Lin Yu had consistently excelled, even surpassing numerous competitors to earn a year of study abroad in Europe. Lin Yu is the type who is both gifted and diligent. He just returned from abroad last week and is back at work today. When he first joined, I looked down on him due to his Omega status, but now I realize how narrow-minded I was. To elicit such praise from an alpha in the same position suggests he is truly remarkable. Recalling Gu Yilin's gentle demeanor towards him, a light bulb flickered to life in my mind. Could it be that Lin Yu was the Omega Gu Yilin favored? It would not be surprising for someone so exceptional to catch his eye. Upon returning home, I dined alone and then sequestered myself in the art studio, feeling an inexplicable heaviness in my heart. By the time dinner rolled around, the canvas before me remained a blank slate. With a sigh, I tidied my materials and descended the stairs. The sound of the door's keypad being entered caught my attention. I halted, remembering Gu Yilin had mentioned he would return for dinner, and my mood shifted to an unrecognized anticipation. The door swung open, but it was Lin Yu who entered. "Gu Yilin has a banquet to attend tonight. I am here to fetch his attire." He said this without waiting for a response, making his way upstairs with ease, selecting a formal suit, and then departing promptly. That night, Gu Yilin did not return until I had gone to bed. The overseas merger project that Gu Corporation had been pursuing encountered complications, and Gu Yilin suddenly became extraordinarily busy. His level of busyness made me feel as though his previously normal lifestyle had reverted to the pace of a holiday. Unceasing meetings, social engagements, and business trips disrupted the rhythm of our interactions. Our encounters dwindled to a mere handful. Yet I frequently saw Lin Yu, who would come to our home every couple of days to retrieve items Gu Yilin needed. While having someone to run errands for me should have been a relief, it instead stirred a sense of unexplainable bitterness within me. Occasionally, Gu Yilin would manage to return home for dinner, but Lin Yu would invariably accompany him, their conversations filled with topics I found incomprehensible, which only served to heighten my irritation. I would quickly finish my meal and retreat upstairs. On one occasion, perhaps my discontent was too glaringly obvious, for Gu Yilin caught up to me and grasped my arm. I apologize for not having time to accompany you lately. Within a week, I should be able to resolve these issues. After that, you need not report these matters to me. I interrupted him with a hint of impatience, my voice cold enough to render me unrecognizable. We are merely united in a marriage of convenience. Companionship is not your obligation. I resembled a mischievous child, fully aware that Gu Yilin would be displeased by such words, yet choosing to provoke him nonetheless. However, when his expression darkened and he silently released my hand, I found no satisfaction in my actions. In the following days, the atmosphere at home mirrored the somber skies of the plum rain season. I sat idly beneath the eaves, when my mother called to inform me of my father's recovery from surgery abroad. As I contemplated when to fly over for a visit, my thoughts were abruptly interrupted by a sudden conversation. Upon returning to the living room, I discovered Lin Yu engaged in earnest discussion with Uncle Zhang, likely about Gu Yilin's unexpected business trip and the need to pack his belongings. I had grown accustomed to his presence and proceeded to the kitchen to prepare coffee and afternoon snacks. Since our last unpleasant encounter, Gu Yilin and I had not seen each other, nor had either of us made an effort to reach out. After a few days of reflection, I realized that my behavior on that day had been excessive. Regardless of the circumstances, it was inappropriate to sulk while he was working hard. Hesitating for a moment, I decided to make an extra cup of coffee and package some snacks for Lin Yu to deliver to Gu Yilin, as a gesture of apology. To my surprise, Lin Yu merely shot me a disdainful glance, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. President Gu cannot drink coffee. It gives him stomach pains. What? You didn't know this because it's a marriage of convenience? His blatant provocation ignited the pent-up frustration within me, flaring into a sudden rage. At the dice bar, in box 202, I clutched a bottle of alcohol, pouring out my grievances to my friend Hung. I've tolerated him for far too long. Why does he always wear that scowl? What have I done to deserve this? And Gu Yilin? He refuses coffee yet insists I buy a coffee machine. Is he stockpiling coffee beans just to let them mold? Everyone's giving me the cold shoulder. Am I really that easy to push around? I have my limits too. I can have fun on my own, and it's far more enjoyable. Hung listened quietly to my complaints. To comfort me, he summoned 8 male models to cheer me up. Once he noticed my mood had brightened slightly, he cautiously interjected, "But Xiao Shu, weren't you the one who wanted to live separate lives with Gu Yilin? Why does it seem that now that it's becoming a reality, you're not happy about it?" His question left me momentarily speechless. Even I began to realize that during this time, my emotional fluctuations were heavily influenced by Gu Yilin. As though I had become a marionette, my feelings entirely at his mercy. Especially after Lin Yu's appearance, I pondered for a long while before finally confessing, "Am I starting to like Gu Yilin?" Hung looked at me with an expression that conveyed, "You've finally seen the light." As promised, Gu Yilin had managed to get the Gu Corporation's projects back on track within a week. He resumed his normal routine of coming home for meals and sleep, treating me with the same indifference as before, as if our previous unpleasantness had never transpired. Yet I, acutely aware of the dangerous signals of my growing affection, began to intentionally evade him. After all, in such a relationship, the one who develops feelings invariably faces an unfavorable outcome. I took my pillows and blankets to the guest room, ensuring to check the corridor for footsteps before leaving. I even went so far as to decline my favorite dish of eggplant, fried dough, and shrimp, all to avoid dining together. Not wishing to live under such oppressive circumstances, I resolved to visit Dice every night to meet Hung, only sneaking back home when it was time to sleep. Of course, staying out was not a viable long-term solution. It was detrimental to stock prices. Gu Yilin clearly sensed my avoidance. After my nth late return, Ignoring him and heading straight to the guest room, he knocked on my door. Why haven't you been letting the driver take you? Taking a taxi is quite convenient. Why must I rely on the car service? But Dice is quite chaotic, and you and Omega, wait, how do you know I'm at Dice? Are you investigating my whereabouts? Xia Shu, I'm merely concerned for your safety. That nightclub has no restrictions on alphas, and under the influence of alcohol, it can be quite. I understood that Gu Yilin's intentions were well-meaning, but the age-old lecture only served to irritate me further. Dice is owned by a friend of mine. They have excellent safety measures for Omegas. No, why was I even explaining myself to him? In any case, there's no need for concern. I'll be fine. At the very least, when you come home at night, call the driver to pick you up, alright? Or you could call me, he persisted. I interrupted him impatiently. Gu Yilin, I have the freedom to socialize normally, and I know how to protect myself. Between us, to put it bluntly, it's merely a business relationship. I won't interfere with your life, and I hope you won't overstep your bounds. With a few decisive words, I re-established our boundaries, slamming the door shut. I failed to see Gu Yilin standing at the door for a long while, his hand raised several times to knock again, before finally letting it fall. Unbeknownst to me, I began spending increasingly late nights at Dice. Midnight turned to 1, then 2 o'clock. Yihang came specifically to find me in the VIP room. It's past midnight. Why aren't you going home? Home? I don't want to go home. I detest it. Staying out all night. I fear your companion might come over and demolish my establishment. He wouldn't. Yihang shook his head, exuding a sense of helplessness. He called the bartender to remove all high-proof alcohol from the table. Snack on some peanuts. Don't get too drunk. Oh Hung, you truly care for me. I want to be best friends with you forever. I lunged forward and embraced Yihang tightly. He wore a look of distaste but ultimately did not push me away. Suddenly, my foggy brain caught wind of something amiss. I sniffed the air around Yihang and questioned him seriously. Are you hiding an alpha from me? Huh? I can't detect your pheromones at all. Have you been marked? What are you talking about? Yihang awkwardly averted his gaze, fidgeting with his collar in a manner that only heightened my suspicions. I then noticed that he, who usually favored casual attire, was wearing a shirt for the first time. I reached out and tugged at his collar, attempting to inspect his gland. Hey, don't pull so hard. You're tugging my hair. Ow, ow, ow. Stop blocking me. Let me see your neck. In the midst of our struggle, the door to the VIP room was suddenly flung open with force. Gu Yilin stood at the entrance. Witnessing the scene before him, Yihang pinned beneath me, while I had just yanked the second button off his shirt, reflecting on my life. If my first embarrassing moment was when I lost my voice during a speech under the national flag due to a falling spider, my second most humiliating experience was being carried home by my marriage partner in front of a crowd at the city's most popular nightclub. Even after being tossed onto the soft bed in the master bedroom, my mind remained in a daze. Looking up, I saw Gu Yilin leisurely untying his tie. From the intensity in his gaze, I sensed a strong warning signal and instinctively shrank back towards the headboard, only to be yanked back by him. Now you're scared? He grasped my hand, kissing each knuckle tenderly, his pine-scented pheromones enveloping me. Mixed with alcohol, it sent me into a state of hazy intoxication, and I found myself surrendering to the sensation. Only when my hands were bound to the headboard with his tie did I grasp the last remnants of my rationality. Gu Yilin, are you aware of what you are doing? Of course. The little one at home plays around every day. He needs a lesson. What do you mean playing around? Didn't we agree to keep to ourselves? Upon hearing this, Gu Yilin leaned in closer, a low chuckle escaping his lips by my ear. My dear, it's about keeping to ourselves. Only you're playing with male models while I am playing with you. I was unaware when my clothes had been pushed up to my neck. Warm, damp kisses descended, igniting shivers across my body. Although my consciousness was clouded, my body responded honestly to Gu Yilin's actions. Biting my lip could not stifle the whimpers that slipped between my teeth. Equally uncontrollable was the scent of my pheromones, reminiscent of orchid, flooding the air, intertwining with the scent of pine. Why are you crying, darling? It's just my fingers. Just bear with it for a moment. It will only hurt for a bit. Promise. Tired? Let's change positions. Be good just one more time and then it will be over. The following day, I could scarcely rise from bed, entirely reliant on Gu Yilin's meticulous care for my every need. Yet, the soreness in my muscles rendered me incapable of presenting him with a pleasant demeanor. Last night, when I grew too fatigued to continue, I insisted he cease his advances. He sweetly coaxed me, suggesting a warm bath would make for a more restful sleep. Little did I know, he would not spare me even in the bathroom. Now, I find myself with a touch of PTSD concerning bathtubs. After cocooning myself in bed for 3 or 4 days, nourished by Gu Yilin's tender care, I finally felt my spirit replenished. Well-fed and well-rested, Gu Yilin entered with a suit in hand, inquiring, "There is an evening banquet tonight, would you like to join me?" I was somewhat perplexed. "You are taking me? Not Lin Yu? Lin Yu? Previous banquets were merely business functions, and as my assistant, he naturally needs to attend. But I know you wouldn't enjoy such gatherings, and I don't want you to feel compelled to socialize with so many people on my account." I nodded, agreeing with his reasoning. This evening is a private banquet, attended by familiar friends and elders. By the way, your brother will be there too. You've been cooped up at home for days. Consider it a chance to unwind, shall we? I couldn't help but shoot him a glare, as if he could forget that my confinement at home was due to his own actions. Though it was a private gathering, Gu Yilin still needed to exchange pleasantries with the elders. I discreetly slipped away to the dessert area, delighting in the treats before me. Just as I was indulging, a familiar voice interrupted my reverie. "Why are you still only focused on eating?" I turned around, surprise lighting up my face. "Brother." I had anticipated that after such a long separation, we would reconnect as brothers. However, Xia Yan pulled me aside, his first words being, "What problem are you having with Gu Yilin?" I averted my gaze, feeling a twinge of guilt. What problems could there be? The fact that you frequent Dice daily suggests otherwise. I pouted. How many lectures must I endure for visiting a nightclub? Wait, that's not the point. How do you know I go to Dice every day? Are you still in contact with Yiheng? Perhaps it was just my imagination. But Xia Yan's expression shifted to something less comfortable. Cough. Don't divert the topic. We're discussing your issues. I'm merely visiting Yiheng to avoid being a bother at home. Who would consider you a bother? Gu Yilin? I fell silent, staring down at the small cake on my plate. Are you mistaken? If he were to dislike you, why would he propose a marriage alliance with your parents? I froze. What did that mean? The marriage alliance was proposed by Gu Yilin? Seeing my reaction, Xia Yan caught on. You can't possibly not know about this. My mind was suddenly overwhelmed. Wait. The marriage alliance was supposed to address issues at the Xia family, needing the Gu family's assistance to resolve them, right? Xia Yan wore an exasperated expression, tapping my forehead lightly. What are you thinking? The company's financial chain has indeed faced some issues, but we are entirely capable of resolving it ourselves. That's not right. Didn't father postpone his surgery for this matter? The surgery was merely delayed due to the scheduling conflicts at the foreign hospital. Seeing my still dazed expression, Xia Yan sighed. My foolish brother, so you didn't even think to inquire, merely relying on your assumptions to decide to sacrifice yourself to marry Gu Yilin? Not entirely. As I spoke, my expression changed abruptly. Gu Yilin had appeared behind Xia Yan, unbeknownst to me. On the way home, an uncomfortable silence lingered between Gu Yilin and me. I retraced the entire sequence of events, realizing the magnitude of my misunderstanding. But what about Gu Yilin? I glanced over, only to find him staring out the window, his expression obscured by the dim light. Xia Yan claimed the marriage alliance was suggested by Gu Yilin. Why would he do such a thing? Does he have feelings for me? Is that why he treats me so well? Each time he hears about the marriage alliance, does he become furious? But doesn't he have someone he likes? What are his feelings for Lin Yu? Sensing my gaze, Gu Yilin turned to me. He seemed to have made a significant decision before asking, "Is there anything you wish to say?" His tone remained as gentle as ever. Had it been the previous me, I would have eagerly sought to dissolve our relationship. Yet now I yearned to understand Gu Yilin's thoughts. I parted my lips, overwhelmed by the multitude of questions, uncertain which to voice. A sense of dread crept in, fearing he might not provide the answers I sought. At that moment, maintaining our current state would seem a challenge. Am I willing to risk that? A voice within me inquired. The answer was clearly that I was unwilling. Gu Yilin, I am feeling somewhat confused at the moment. I may need some time to think. Very well. Silence enveloped the car once more. Xiaxu. As we arrived home, Gu Yilin called out to me. His eyes brimmed with emotions I could not comprehend. Whatever decision you make, I will accept it. I will wait for you. Gu Yilin had yet to receive my answer, but I received a message from Lin Yu first. It was a photograph. Lin Yu revealed only half of his face, with the focus of the image on Gu Yilin, bare-chested and changing clothes behind him. I sprang from the dining table, fury propelling me to the Gu Corporation building. Inside the office, only Lin Yu remained, leisurely sipping coffee on the sofa. Upon seeing me, he displayed no surprise, seemingly having anticipated my arrival. I sat across from him, cutting straight to the chase. What do you mean by sending that photo? Lin Yu let out a light scoff. We're all adults here. Surely you understand the implications of that photo? I closed my eyes briefly, deciding to take a gamble. I don't understand. I only know that Gu Yilin would never betray this marriage. On what grounds are you so confident? At the end of the day, you're merely in a marriage alliance. It's perfectly normal for each to have their own affairs. I trust Gu Yilin. And although we are in a marriage alliance, it is not a casual one. What kind is it, then? A lifetime commitment. Are you willing to spend your life with someone you don't like? Who says I don't like him? No sooner had I spoken than I noticed Lin Yu's expression shift, transforming into a satisfied smile as he glanced over my shoulder. Following his gaze, I turned to see Gu Yilin standing at the door, his eyes sparkling as he looked at me. Lin Yu approached and patted his shoulder, saying, "All right, I've repaid the favor I owe you in full. The rest is up to you." With that, she turned back and offered me an apologetic smile before departing. Him? What does that mean? I was still perplexed. Gu Yilin chuckled with a hint of resignation. He can't bear to see me in such a pitiful state when it comes to romance and said he wanted to help. I never anticipated he'd choose this method. So you two are nothing more than friends? Gu Yilin pulled me to the floor-to-ceiling window and gestured for me to look down. Just as Lin Yu exited the building, a tall and striking man approached her, naturally taking her hand, and the two strolled away side by side. They've been together since university. They even registered their marriage before Lin Yu went abroad, and their relationship has always been strong. So, to me, Lin Yu was merely a friend and an assistant. I entirely overlooked the fact that she is an Omega and failed to consider whether this might lead to misunderstandings. I apologize. The waning sunlight bathed Gu Yilin's earnest face, casting a soft golden hue over his eyes, reminiscent of a brilliant star. His gaze was so focused and warm that in that moment of eye contact, it conveyed an unprecedented sense of security and happiness. Xiao Shu, the only person I cherish is you. Although this question comes rather late, would you do me the honor of marrying me? I smiled and nodded. Then I gently closed my eyes, awaiting the kiss that Gu Yilin was about to bestow upon me. Extra. Gu Yilin still vividly recalls the first time he met Xia Shu at the Xia family home during the summer before going abroad. Xia Shu stood timidly behind his brother, revealing his small face to greet everyone. That was when Gu Yilin first thought of using the word beautiful to describe a boy. At the family gathering, the adults clinked glasses and discussed the latest economic trends, while the children gathered in the living room, passing the time with board games. Xia Shu clearly showed little interest in such activities, instead sitting alone on a ladder in front of a bookshelf, flipping through an art book. After finishing one, he reached for another. Unexpectedly, the ladder shifted suddenly as its wheels were not secured, and Xia Shu, caught off guard, nearly fell. Fortunately, he quickly grasped the handrail, stabilizing himself. The entire episode unfolded swiftly, barely noticed by anyone, except Gu Yilin. Noticing the ladder's movement, his hand trembled violently, causing the tower of blocks he was building to collapse with a resounding crash. What happened, Gu Yilin? That was only the third one. Do you have a shaking problem at such a young age? Gu Yilin maintained his composure, replying, "Oh." There was a sudden thunderclap that startled me. Don't tell me you're afraid of thunder. I am absolutely terrified. Everyone recognized this as Gu Xiao's feeble excuse to save face, and they laughed and moved on, paying him no mind. By the time the gathering concluded, Gu Yilin stood alone in the corridor waiting for his ride. His parents had gone to the Zhang family to admire the recent acquisitions of calligraphy and paintings. Meanwhile, the driver had just informed him that a tire had burst and would be delayed by 10 minutes. The rain intensified, and a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by the rumble of thunder. Someone covered Gu Yilin's ears. Turning, he saw Xia Shu. That fleeting glance remained etched in Gu Yilin's memory for 7 years. Every time thunder rumbled, the image of that tiptoeing figure would resurface in his mind. Later, Gu Yilin and Xia Shu reminisced about that day. Xia Shu was pleasantly surprised, not realizing they had met so early on, and he playfully pressed Gu Yilin to ask if he had fallen for him then. Gu Yilin felt a flush of embarrassment. Using Xia Shu's forgetfulness about their first encounter as an excuse, he playfully punished him for an entire evening. From that day forth, Xia Shu never dared to mention that incident again. A deafening clap of thunder jolted Gu Yilin from his reverie. The study door swung open, and a figure rushed towards him. Xia Shu gently caressed his face, concern evident in his eyes as he asked, "It's thundering. Did it frighten you?" Gu Yilin nuzzled his cheek against Xia Shu's hand. After a moment's thought, he decided to conceal his lack of fear of thunder, for this way, Xia Shu would hold him tightly before they slept, soothing him and assuring him not to be afraid. Eventually, as the rhythmic sound of breathing filled the air, Gu Yilin opened his eyes, feigning sleep. He tucked Xia Shu's foot, which had escaped the covers, back under the blanket and planted a secret kiss at the corner of his mouth. Then, he playfully pulled Xia Shu into his embrace, and together they drifted into a deep slumber. The moonlight after the storm was exceptionally bright, pouring into the room and listening to the endless romance and love. The end. Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next story.